So there, I have been, as I said, continuing my journey through the Legends of the Dark Knight run in the 90s. And I know I say this at the beginning of every time, but for those who don't want to cut this out as its own video and whatnot, if people happen to tune into this and wonder what this is, Legends of the Dark Knight run was a new title that DC released for Batman after Batmania in 1989 had just been so explosive. And they realized, wow, we could probably sell a whole new title for Batman, which was a big deal because up until that point, Batman had only really sold in the Batman title and in the Detective Comics title. So this was a big deal. And I've been going through them in order. You can look through my videos in the past there to see. Now I'm up to issue... Wait, do I do these first? No, I'm issue 31. I forgot the very last story arc. Was it Faces? I think Faces might have been the very last story arc that I did. But issue 31 is a standalone issue, a standalone story called Family. And you see the writers and artists, the James D. Hundall, Brent Anderson. And this was... Are we in 1992 now? I think so, because you got the ads for Batman Returns, you know, on the back of it coming out soon. This is a standalone story, and it's the thing about the Legends of the Dark Knight run, the shtick of it, or the reason for it, is that they're all supposed to be stories of Batman relatively early on in his career, like within the first few years or something like that. They also don't generally have any other heroes crossing over. It feels very isolated. It's still in the DC universe, but you don't really have Superman dropping by or whatever. There are some very small caveats to that I'll get to here in a moment. But that's the idea. And this is a really cool story here. This is the first story, I think, in the DC universe that actually has the Corto Maltese in the story. Because remember in the movie, Vicky Vale had done photography in the Corto Maltese. You know, and they actually have the country in it. The Batman goes there. The premise is that he makes Alfred take a vacation. He's like, Alfred, you work too hard. Let me at least set you up with this nice vacation. I'll be okay. You just get a vacation, for crying out loud. So Alfred goes to the Corto Maltese. He ends up getting kidnapped by these terrorists, these like guerrilla insurgents or whatever, because they realize who he is, that he's a butler of this rich guy, and they think we can get a lot of money out of him. So Batman, of course, comes to save Alfred. And there's a moment in the beginning of it, where Batman's swinging through the jungle, he's trying to make his way there, and you get his internal dialogue. And he's talking about Alfred, I swear they better not have touched you. Alfred's his family. He's a surrogate father in so many ways. And he says one thing, he says, so help me God, if they've harmed you, I might just have to break my no-kill rule tonight. And he's just thinking to himself this as he's going through. He doesn't. This isn't some, controversial, he doesn't kill, Batman doesn't kill, period. And I thought, okay, well, how do I feel about that? And I think I'm okay with Batman sort of having an internal monologue and maybe saying that to himself. Never actually doing it, never actually acting on it. But I could think that easily myself, like if I got along the hypothetical lines of thinking if anybody ever laid a hand on my daughter, yeah, I'll torture them for 24 hours before I make them die slowly. I mean, it's very easy for me just to say that to myself because you don't harm my daughter, and this is how much Alfred feels, Batman feels about Alfred when it comes to actually, if you actually had an opportunity or something like that, of course you wouldn't. Of course your values and your virtues that you built yourself up on wouldn't allow that. But, he brings them to justice instead. So I thought it was an interestingly human moment of Batman. It's really just left as that. He doesn't have anger issues when he's taking down the thugs. No, he's true blue Batman as Batman. It was just like an interesting little human moment that he shares with the reader that I think was fun. The story itself isn't. It's a little compressed. It would have been a better tale if it would breathed out over 3 or 4 issues, but or at least 2 issues at the very least. So it's a little compressed. It goes a little quickly, but overall the idea of it's a good story. And yes, it's the iconic Batman here. Legends of the Dark Knight number 31. It's called Batman Family. This was a good one too. Next up, I have one more little arc that I did in the Legends of the Dark Knight for this time around. It was the let me see. Get a couple super chats here before I missed them. It's all Big Al here. Welcome, Big Al. Good to see you there. Matthew Flynn had another super chat, said, I've noticed Optimus Prime nowadays is one of the last few true aspirational heroes. Is he even with the modern stuff they've been doing? It's only a matter of time. I thought that I thought Michael Bay pretty much kind of killed that franchise. I know some people think they brought it back with like the Bumblebee and like the animated film they did or whatever. I don't know. I don't know much about it because I'm not a Transformers aficionado, but I do know that he was one of the true blue aspirational heroes like He-Man and Superman and everybody from the 80s, definitely. Tom Spiegel, thank you for the super chat. He said, someone has good taste. I'm currently consuming the 1988 Flash Gordon comics by Jan Jurgens and the novel series by Ron Goulart on Audible. Didn't even know that was on Audible. I'll have to check that out myself because, yeah, that's a character that I really did, that I'd like to get into more. I just have a very basic sort of, pedestrian knowledge of the character, but I'd like to get into that a bit more. All right, so Legends of the Dark Knight issues 32 and 33, Destiny, the story arc of Destiny. This was cool. It took me a little while to get into this and really, decide if I liked it or not. But Mark Neese and Ro Hampton. This is one of those little caveats I told you. Pretty cool covers there too, especially this one over here. I like the composition of the mise-en-scene, if you will. But as I said, the Legends of the Dark Knight titles weren't supposed to have any other characters or heroes crossing over into them. They're just Batman. But occasionally they would make the exception, or they'd allow like a very much lesser known hero creep in. I think the Cavalier, is it the Cavalier? Is that his name? He comes up in one of these issues. In this 2-issue crossover, you get the Viking. I don't know if you guys know the Viking. He was I think he was an older, I don't know a lot about him myself. He was an older character, and they started doing a new series with him right around this time in the 90s. I don't know if the series ever turned out to be much or if people liked it or not, but it was the story of like a hero Viking. It was like an old fantasy tale. And I'm trying to find, I think there was an ad for the comic series in this issue, but I should have picked it up beforehand. Can't find it now. Let's see if it's in this one. Anyway, this is a story about Batman meets this Olympic athlete from the Netherlands. Norway, is he from Norway? I forget exactly which country he's from, but he's his home is being basically taken over by this company called no, I can't find it right now. I don't know. You can look up the Viking. His home is being taken over by this company called Ragnarok. They're called something that works with the Viking mythology, and they're taking over. They're buying up the land, and the people who aren't selling their land and their family, homes, are being bullied, basically terrorized and beaten up and so forth. So this Olympic athlete uses his celebrity as an athlete and he's a Viking from the comics, and going about and beating up these thugs, but also trying to bring awareness in the media and whatnot to what this company's doing. So Batman joins up with them, and there's a lot of little things. I'm not going to give you all the ins and outs of it, but they find that there's this link between the two of them, Batman and this athlete who's dressing up as the Viking. And they discovered this old tome about this old Norse story about this Viking who took on the persona of a bat. So basically like a Batman back in Viking days. It's done well. It's done better than I'm setting it up as. Who teamed up with this great prince, the Viking prince, who is the Viking character, the Viking prince. And they had to team up to fight Hel, of Norse mythology, Loki's daughter, and save these people and do all these things. And there's caveat, there's links to connections between what they read in this old book and what's actually going on in the present, with trying to fight this company. It was actually good. At first, when I first started reading it, I thought, is this a little too convoluted? Is it a little too weird? But it's actually pretty good. It's actually really good. By the end of it, I thought, no, that was well done. That's a good story. So it's a 2-issue arc and called Batman Destiny, Legends of the Dark Knight Destiny. Definitely recommend that as well. You got good old iconic Batman there. Tom Spiegel, did I get this one yet? Oh yeah, you got that one. Yeah. Let me I think I got another one down here. Studio Super. Thank you for the super chat. Said kind of like Batman the Animated Series, the Underdwellers. Oh yeah, the Underdwellers. Using kids for slavery and labor. I swore to let the courts do their work, but this time I've never been more tempted to finish the job myself. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he said things like that in Batman the Animated Series. I forgot about that, but you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's just the same kind of thing. Because of course he doesn't. It's not like, saying that Batman sometimes he could, it's not that at all. It's just showing his human side as he controls it and does what Batman does.